HOA cop pointed a gun at my daughter, didn't know she was under deep cover for Homeland Security. He pointed a gun at the wrong woman. The day Paul Maris pointed a gun at my daughter was the day his uniform stopped meaning anything. It was a Thursday. One of those dry southern afternoons where even the birds seem too tired to sing. I was tinkering in the garage adjusting the belt tension on the mower when my phone buzzed. Riley had taken the old Silverado to grab groceries. Just a quick run down to the Shell station on Fuller Road. 15 minutes, maybe 20. The message just said, "Get here. Now." No punctuation. No context. Just, now. By the time I pulled out of the driveway, my gut already knew. When a message from your daughter feels like a thunderclap, you don't wait for lightning. I found them at the corner of Brookside Lane, right where the pavement turned from private road to public. The HOA border, technically. Our HOA, if you believe their rules still applied to me. I never did. The truck was parked off to the side. Riley stood with her back to it. "Come." So. And standing across from her, hand on a holstered pistol, was Paul Maris, head of the HOA Safety and Compliance Committee. 6-foot bully in a khaki tactical vest with a god complex the size of a subdivision. I slammed the brakes so hard gravel popped under my tires. "Sir, I need you to stay back," Paul shouted the moment I stepped out. He hadn't even turned to look at me. "You pointing a gun at my kid, Paul?" I said. "I heard you." I took 2 steps forward. That's when Riley turned her head just slightly. Her eyes found mine. Not afraid. Just calculating. Like she was watching a chessboard everyone else thought was a poker game. "Dad," she said, steady as granite, "I need you to stop right there." I stopped. Paul hadn't noticed the tension in her voice. The posture. The way her feet were aligned like she was ready to pivot or pounce. I asked for identification. Paul barked, puffing up. She refused. Said I didn't have authority. She raised her voice. I asked what law I'd broken, Riley said, her voice flat, unblinking. Paul snapped. "This is HOA territory. You're on private road." "You're on public shoulder," Riley corrected. "I'm conducting a safety check." "With your hand on a loaded firearm?" She looked suspicious. That was it. That one line. She looked suspicious. I looked at my daughter. Black jeans. Gray zip hoodie. Nothing but a small grocery bag on the tailgate. She could have been anyone's daughter. Except she wasn't. She was mine. And she wasn't just anyone. That's when she did something that stopped time. She reached, slow, deliberate, into her back pocket and pulled out a small leather-bound wallet. Unsnapped it. She flipped it open and held it up. The seal caught the sun. "Homeland Security. Federal officer." Paul blinked. "Put your hand where I can see it," she said. He hesitated. Then stepped back muttering, "You're bluffing?" She stepped forward. "I'm not." And just like that, the spell broke. I walked the rest of the way. Stood next to her. Didn't speak. Didn't have to. Paul lowered his hand. His face turned the color of chalk dust. The swagger drained out of his shoulders like air from a slashed tire. "Oh, I didn't mean," he mumbled. Riley stepped forward, quiet as a shadow. "You just pointed a gun at a federal officer, Mr. Maris? While claiming false jurisdiction. While impersonating law enforcement. In front of a witness. And on a public easement." I didn't know." "That's the problem," she said. "You act like you do." He turned and walked, fast, to his SUV. Peeled away like a teenager who just keyed a car and hoped no one saw. We stood there a moment longer. Then Riley exhaled, looked at me and said, "Guess now's a good time to tell you where I really work." Back at the house I made coffee. She sat at the kitchen table, rubbing her temple like she'd just walked out of an op and back into the wrong movie. I stared at her badge on the table between us. "You serious?" I asked. She nodded. "Since 2017. Homeland. Domestic Extremism Division. Mostly threats hidden behind badges and paperwork." I blinked. "That sounds familiar." "Yeah," she said, half smiling. "It's why I took this detail." "This is a detail?" "It was supposed to be downtime," she said. "But I saw what was happening the second I pulled into this neighborhood." "You've been tracking this guy?" "Not just him. There's a pattern. HOA militancy. Volunteer patrols escalating to armed response. All under the guise of community safety." She pulled out her phone, opened a secure app and tapped through photos. Paul at a backyard shooting range with 3 other men in HOA polos. A checklist titled Residents to Monitor. A screenshot of a private group chat named Command Post Northside. My stomach dropped. "He's not just acting out," Riley said. He's connected. There are dozens of these cliques popping up across the country. They call themselves gatekeepers. Most never go beyond fake citations. But some. She didn't finish that thought. I didn't ask her to. So what now? I asked. She looked me dead in the eye. Now we go quiet. We build a file. We follow the law louder than they do. She reached for her coffee. And then we teach them the one thing they forgot. She paused. You don't mess with a woman who knows how to bury you with paperwork and walk away clean. They wanted control. She saw a network. There's something eerie about the calm after someone threatens your child, even when your child is trained to handle it better than most. The day after Paul Maris put his hand on his pistol, Riley was already in what she called low-visibility op mode. To me, it looked like she hadn't moved from the dining room table, except for black coffee and power naps. On her laptop were 4 browser windows: HOA bylaws, county enforcement statutes, federal impersonation codes, and a surveillance app that looked like it belonged in a Jason Bourne movie. You sure you want to stir this hornet's nest? I asked her as I set down a fresh mug. Riley didn't look up. I don't have to stir it. They already flew into my house and pointed a stinger at my face. I'm just documenting where it came from. Her voice wasn't angry. It was precise. She wasn't after revenge. She was after the truth. By noon, she'd identified every board member of our HOA. Not just their names, their voting history, financial filings, and, where available, personal backgrounds. She flagged 3 who had direct financial interests in a local security firm. They're building a miniature enforcement empire, she muttered. 1's on payroll. 2 are funneling contracts. She pulled up a PDF titled Community Protection Grant, Internal Proposal. It was a $15,000 submission to the county, co-signed by Maris. The pitch: to increase neighborhood safety and volunteer patrol effectiveness by equipping citizen responders with radios, GPS tracking, and perimeter body cams. She zoomed in on the bottom of the page. My name. Apparently I'd endorsed it. I never signed that, I said. They're forging support now. She leaned back and cracked her knuckles. That means it's bigger than a boundary issue. This is grant fraud. She copied it all to a new folder titled Pattern of Escalation, HOA Zulu Grid. I didn't ask what that meant. She tapped a few keys, activated an encrypted call, and walked outside with a wireless mic clipped to her hoodie. She was gone for 37 minutes. When she came back, she only said one thing. It's active now. We document. Quietly. We started logging everything. Paul's patrol car schedule, logged by neighbors via text. Door-to-door safety check flyers, photographed and archived. Videos of fake traffic stops, captured by front porch cams. Riley set up an auto-upload system. Every new image, video, or report added to a private server only she and 2 contacts could access. She gave me a burner phone and trained me how to use it. You're now the decoy, she told me. They'll assume I'm laying low. Which gives us an edge. Edge for what? For when we expose them. The following Tuesday, Lucille, a 68-year-old neighbor 2 doors down, called me in tears. Jackson, that Maris man, he barged onto my lawn. Said my hedges were a line-of-sight hazard, and if I didn't cut them, he'd have to escalate enforcement. Riley was there before I even stood up. Did he show ID? She asked. Just his stupid badge, Lucille said. Plastic thing with a sticker on it. That night, Riley gave a quiet presentation at Lucille's dining table to 8 elderly residents. She called it, Know the Law, How to Spot a Fake Cop with a Clipboard. By the end, every person had a folder, a mini audio recorder, and a laminated card with their property rights listed in bold red ink. You don't need to argue, Riley told them. You need to document. Calmly. Clearly. And then send it to me. The false authority began to crumble. The HOA patrols became more erratic, shorter routes, more bark than bite. But the surveillance continued. And then one night, Riley caught the key pattern. We were watching drone footage she'd captured from 300 feet above Maris's house. Totally legal in our state if done discreetly and not over private interiors. There, she said, freezing the frame. That's not HOA property. She zoomed in. Paul was dragging a crate, military style, across a backyard patio. The same crate we'd seen on a local gun show flyer advertising bulk tactical gear. Date stamped that, she said. That just linked HOA funds to private weapons storage. Later that week, Riley called in her contact, a man named Ramirez. Late 40s, kind eyes, voice like he belonged in a church choir. He didn't say he was FBI. He didn't need to. He walked our fence line with her for 20 minutes. When they came back, he shook my hand. "We're watching. Stay quiet." That was all he said. But Riley smiled. The kind of smile that meant they were close. The next day, Maris made his final mistake. He showed up at our driveway, again. Alone this time, but shaking with fury. "This has gone too far," he said. "You've been filming me. Spying. That's a violation of HOA policy." "You're not a law enforcement agency," Riley said flatly. "HOA policy doesn't override civil code." "You're dangerous," he said. "I've submitted a formal complaint to the sheriff. You're interfering with safety operations." She held up a folder. "So have I. Only mine includes timestamps, footage, fake citations, and probable cause of federal impersonation." Maris went pale. Riley stepped forward. "And just for clarity, this driveway? It's where you unholstered a weapon toward a federal agent. So if I were you, I'd start preparing a different kind of statement." He backed away, got in his car, drove off like the wheels might come off. Riley didn't move. She looked at me and said, "It's time to push the file." That night she uploaded everything. The grant forgery, the surveillance, the fake traffic stops, the footage of Paul carrying tactical crates, 12 resident statements, HOA emails, legally obtained through public complaint disclosure laws. She titled the master file, Operation Subdivision, The Illusion of Authority. She sent it to DHS, the county sheriff's office, the attorney general's tip line, and a local investigative journalist who owed her a favor. The first reply came within an hour. Received. Escalating to Tier 2 review. Monitor quietly. No direct engagement. The second came at 2:03 a.m. "We need to talk. In person." Riley nodded when she read it. "Now we wait," she said. I looked at her. "You nervous?" She shook her head. "No. He's the one who should be." By sunrise, the file had been opened in 4 federal offices. Riley knew this not because they replied, they wouldn't, but because the tracking nodes embedded in the outgoing links pinged 4 different IP signatures tied to federal domains. DHS, ADF, even DOJ. "They're cross-referencing now," she said. "That means they're looking for patterns, not just here." "Should we be worried?" I asked. She looked up from her screen, calm. "No, they are." That morning our mailbox was ripped out of the ground. 3rd time in 2 weeks. No note. Just twisted metal and a footprint Riley immediately photographed. She didn't call the sheriff. She just added it to the folder. "This is retaliation," she said. "Which means Paul knows he's being watched." "How?" She opened a new subfolder. Behavioral shifts, subject Maris, Paul J. In it, timestamps of route changes, patrol absences, and 2 incidents of him seen wiping his phone screen after long door-to-door checks. She zoomed in on a grainy image from a neighbor's porch cam. "Here," she said, pointing to his belt. There was no gun. "He's disarmed," she muttered. "Or hiding it." Either way, it meant pressure was working. Then came the tipping point. The HOA board, cornered, splintered, and publicly silent, tried to distance themselves. We got an email. "To all residents, HOA safety team leader Paul Maris is on temporary leave pending internal review. We ask the community to refrain from speculation." Riley's lips curled into a grin. "They're folding." "Think he'll back off?" "Not yet." She paused, tapped her mic and said, "Too much ego. Too many secrets." So she baited him. We installed a satellite antenna, a fake one, at the edge of our property line with an LED that blinked every 30 seconds. It looked expensive, important, foreign. We also made sure it sat exactly 11 inches over the HOA line, by Riley's design. "He won't resist," she said. She was right. 2 nights later we caught him. The drone footage was glorious. Time-stamped, infrared clear. Paul parked his truck with the lights off. Walked right up to the antenna. Pulled out a wrench. As he reached for the bolt, he looked up. Straight into the lens. He froze for a half second, then ducked, scrambled away and peeled out. The next day, Riley didn't release the footage to law enforcement. She sent it to the local news station. Subject line: HOA leader caught trespassing on federal surveillance installment? They bit hard. The story ran within 18 hours. Neighborhood leader caught in unauthorized access incident. Residents raised concerns. We weren't named. The footage was blurred. But the message was clear. Paul was unraveling. That's when he showed up again. This time he didn't knock. Just stood on the sidewalk, arms folded, lips tight. I stepped out. Riley stood beside me. You think this is funny? He asked. Turning the neighborhood into a circus? No, Riley replied. I think it's dangerous to let someone pretend they're law. I'm not pretending. You are. And now it's documented. Want to see the footage again? He stared at her. What are you? Really? I'm the person who gave you 3 chances to back off. And now I'm the reason you'll never wear a badge of any kind again. He stepped closer. You think you're the law? No, she said calmly. But I work with them. That's when he lost it. Lunged forward. Didn't touch her, but crossed the line. Riley stepped sideways, pulled a slim baton from her back pocket, and tapped his chest. Not a strike, just a reminder. You move like that again, she said coldly, and I will drop you legally and cleanly. He froze. That's when the sheriff's cruiser pulled up. Deputy Green stepped out, slow and steady. Mr. Maris, he called. I suggest you leave the premises. Now. Paul turned. Stared at all of us. Then walked away, slower than usual but not stronger. He looked beaten. Because he was. The next week was a landslide. 2 separate lawsuits were filed by residents, citing harassment and fraud. The security contractor Paul had quietly hired to train his patrol resigned, issuing a public statement condemning unauthorized misuse of community funds. Riley forwarded that one straight to the AG. Then came the hearing. Not a court one, a mandatory HOA members forum. It was packed. People who hadn't been to a meeting in 5 years were standing in the back. Riley and I sat near the middle. Paul was still technically on the board, though he hadn't spoken publicly. Until now. He took the mic. I've tried to keep this community safe, he began. I acted in good faith. He was interrupted by boos. A woman in the back shouted, pointing a gun at someone's daughter is good faith? Another, my kid got followed by your goons to the mailbox. Paul tried to regain control. That's when Riley stood. Would the board like me to play the drone footage? She asked. Or should we skip to the grant forgery? Silence. Board president, red-faced, shook his head. We've seen it. Good, she said. Because the sheriff has too. And the county. And the federal offices you accidentally sent funding proposals to. Paul opened his mouth. Closed it again. That was the end. The HOA removed Paul within 24 hours. The next day he moved out. Riley watched from the porch as his U-Haul clunked down the road. She didn't smile. Didn't gloat. She just whispered, 1 down. Hundreds to go. I looked at her. You going back? She nodded. But not in the way they expect. She came back home. And brought the Constitution with her. For the first time in a month, the neighborhood didn't feel like it was watching us. Just breathe. Paul Maris was gone. His U-Haul had rattled down the street and out of the county by sunrise. He didn't leave a note. He didn't leave a forwarding address. But he left a legacy, and not the kind they carve into cornerstones. He left behind silence. And in that silence we built something new. Not louder. Just better. It started with a knock on the door. Not from law enforcement, not from a resident. From a woman named Teresa Collins. She lived 2 streets over, had never spoken to us before, but stood on our porch that morning with a folder in her hands and worry in her eyes. My son got ticketed last month, she said. Said he ran a community checkpoint stop sign. There was no stop sign. Just a piece of red plywood nailed to a PVC pipe, put there by one of Paul's patrol cronies. Riley didn't ask questions. She just opened the folder, added a new tab in her laptop and titled it, Phantom Citations, Sandpoint District. By the end of the day, Riley had 8 more residents send her similar letters. Some were demands for fines. Others were warnings. One was a suspension from using the HOA pool amenities for non-cooperative behavior. There was no pool. That night we hosted a gathering in the backyard. No stage. No speakers. Just chairs and cold tea. Riley stood beneath the porch light and said 3 simple words. You were right. People looked at each other. Then she continued. You were right to feel intimidated. Right to feel trapped. And absolutely right to want your voice back. She laid out the facts, the laws, the paper trail. And then she passed out cards, laminated, single-side printed. Rural rights card. You are not required to show ID to HOA patrols. They cannot trespass, fine, or enforce stop orders without legal jurisdiction. Record everything. Stay calm. Call it out. People clapped. Not for show. For relief. The sheriff showed up 2 days later, but not for conflict. Deputy Green brought a proposition. The county board saw your footage, he told Riley. They want you to draft a training manual. Manual for what? For HOA oversight. For private patrol legality. For constitutional boundaries. She stared at him. You want me to train deputies on how not to get played by people like Paul? He nodded. And you'll pay me? He smiled. Damn right we will. So she did. For the next month, she turned the barn into an ops center. She called it the legal outpost. The walls were lined with blown-up diagrams of easement laws, HOA enforcement limits, and fake badge comparisons. She ordered rubber stamps that said void and no legal authority, and taught folks how to spot forged citations. But it wasn't just local anymore. Emails started pouring in. From Texas. From Idaho. Even from Alaska. One said, they told my daughter she wasn't allowed to park her patrol car in front of our house. She's active-duty military. Another, they fined me for flying a flag on my porch. It wasn't HOA compliant. Riley didn't just read them. She responded to every single one by one. Calm, direct, focused, just like she trained to do. Then came the article. A journalist from State Watch published a long-form piece titled, One Woman versus the HOA State, How a DHS Agent Quietly Toppled a Neighborhood Regime. It went viral. Her name wasn't used. Neither was mine. But the impact rippled fast. The state attorney general's office contacted her within 72 hours. Asked if she'd be willing to speak at a roundtable. She agreed. Not because she wanted the spotlight, but because she knew what was coming next. This wasn't about Paul. He was a symptom, she told me. The disease is unchecked power disguised as paperwork. The HOA tried to recover. They installed a new board. Renamed the patrol team, Neighborhood Welcome Liaisons. Didn't matter. The residents had learned too much. No one answered when the new patrol rang doorbells. No one paid the new safety maintenance dues. And when they tried to reintroduce gate access cards, Riley filed a public easement challenge. It passed. The gates were ordered open. And just like that, freedom rolled back in. Riley stayed for 2 more months. Built out a national digital toolkit called Standpoint, a one-stop legal literacy portal for rural homeowners dealing with HOA abuse. She filled it with templates, diagrams, case studies, and a database of legal aid contacts by county. She didn't monetize it. No ads. No donation links. Just truth. And empowerment. I watched her at her desk one night, arms tired, eyes red, smile soft. You proud of yourself? I asked. She looked up. I'm proud of them, she said. They stopped being afraid. The day she left, the street felt quiet again, but not like before. It was the kind of quiet that meant the storm had passed, but the ground was stronger. She hugged me long. Told me she'd be back. Not just to visit, but to speak, to teach, to help when the next one flared up. They're everywhere, she said. But now so am I. Her last act? She handed me a wooden sign and asked if I could install it next to our mailbox. I dug the hole myself. Carved the post. Secured the plate. Read. This property is protected by the Constitution, and a woman who can quote it from memory. No threats. Just clarity. And that's all we ever wanted.